Today, we are talking about Mabon and how to celebrate the fall equinox. So, where shall we begin? Today, we're going to talk about the wheel of the year and where we are on that cycle. We're going to talk about the themes of the season. I have a tea recipe to share, a seasonal table activity. There are reflection questions, both for looking at nature and your personal life. There's a study guide, a tarot spread, and a meditation. But let's begin with a poem by Mary Oliver, Fall Song. Another year gone, leaving everywhere its rich, spiced residues. Vines, leaves, the uneaten fruits crumbling damply in the shadows, unmattering back from the particular island of this summer, this now, that now is nowhere except underfoot, moldering in that black subterranean castle of unobservable mysteries, roots and sealed seeds, and the wanderings of water. This I try to remember when time's measure painfully chafes. For instance, when autumn flares out at the last boisterous, and like us, longing to stay. How everything lives, shifting from one bright vision to another, forever in these momentary pastures. Here is the wheel of the year, and this is where we are at the equinox, across from the spring equinox. The light of the sun is waning. We are in the time of decreasing solar power, and we surrender at the equinox, the age of light, I suppose. From the spring equinox to the fall equinox, there was more light than dark, and now there begins to be more dark than light. We really are in the season of harvest and death. Autumn is the harvest and death season. These are the months full of gratitude, integration, and mourning. The days are much shorter. The earth is winding down, preparing for her winter rest. We fill our pantries with the preserved abundance from our garden. The fall equinox is celebrated during this time, a moment of balance between light and dark. And we are invited to make final preparations before winter. What needs to be brought back into balance? The veil between the realms grows thin at Samhain, and intuitive powers are amplified. That's where we're headed. And the energy of this season can be mysterious as well as festive. As we honor our ancestors and share the bounty of our lives, we can gather with kin, give thanks, feast, and prepare for the darkness. As co-creators with the universe, we welcome the medicine of harvest archetypes to do some gathering, releasing, and honoring in our personal, spiritual, professional, and romantic lives. This poem titled Mabon comes from Raven Willow Rune. In the lazy, hazy days of summer, the bumblebee took flight. He buzzed around the flowers and took nectar for his delight. The squirrels all went hunting for nuts and berries bright to keep them in midwinter when the larder shelves are light. Now autumn falls upon us. The days are drawing in. We must make preparation before the winter rain sets in. This is a time for harvest of colors red, orange, brown, and gold, a time to gather and reap the fruit from seeds we sowed. Take time to honor the goddess for the abundance in your life. Take time to give thanks now for your wealth, health, husband, and wife. We make the bread, then break it, to taste the wheat within. We make the mead, then drink for the honey we put in. Goddess, bless the bees and their busy hive. Goddess, bless the squirrels hiding in the dray. Goddess, bless each one of us, and let us thank the goddess for this blessed day. The season of Mabon, it's kind of one of my favorites. And big theme at the fall equinox is balance, especially after the hectic, frenetic days of summer. And we've been out and vacationing and, busy doing our fun summery things. And if you're a gardener, it's a very busy time, like lots of harvesting and growing. And now, as we prepare to turn into the darker half of the year, we want to get ourselves right again and think about what is out of balance, what is in excess, and what is there a lacking of, so that we can begin to live more harmoniously within ourselves, our families, and our communities. And thinking about balance is both like a work-life balance. Excuse me. We can think about balance in our finances, balance in our attention, and thinking about who in our families and our friend life is receiving a lot of our attention, who needs more of our attention. All of these things will help bring harmony into our systems. There is an invitation here around justice, social justice, environmental justice, and looking around you in your communities and where your influence and resources can be of use so that you can help to make things right. And that justice could be just within your family. Maybe there's a tense relationship that needs tending to, or it could be doing work to protect the waters in your community. Obviously, abundance is a huge part of this time of year. Mabon is often referred to as the witch's Thanksgiving. And when I go out to my garden, I'm harvesting chard. This is when all the carrots are awesome. The tomatoes are ripening. The beets are ready to pull. The fall crops like the bok choy and what else do I have? Some cabbages are really thriving. So now is a great time to go out there to the farmer's market, to your own garden, even looking in your grocery store for locally grown food and reveling in the gifts of the earth. Let us not take for granted this gorgeous food, this delicious nourishment for our bodies, and give thanks for it and welcome its medicine as well as its joy. So, some other themes or that I like to call upon at this time. These are like a nice nod to the symbols and archetypes, as well as really fun activities to do at this time to bring us into harmony with the energy of the season. I love leaf crafts. I like dipping them in wax, like warming beeswax and adding like cinnamon essential oil to that, and the house smells amazing. And after you dip the leaves, you can hang them up and create a little banner decorations in your house. My kiddos and I have also done where you paint the leaves and then stamp them. Let's see, what else can you do? Using pine cones or watercolors to create landscapes. Also, if you're creating or keeping a little seasonal table, making little clay figures of animals or trees and putting those on your table is really sweet. Plants and herbs, apples are my go-to September plant and friend. I love the medicine and taste of apples and preserving them through juices or pies, the best. But the gourds are also ripening at this time, so a great time to kind of bring those to your altar or incorporate them into your eating. And some herbs that are great for this time, motherwort, so good for there's a lot of like anxiety kind of woven into this time of year, especially around the idea of enoughness. The body that is indigenous to the land knows that the darkness is coming. And so there's a question inside the body around, do we have enough to survive the dark days? And motherwort, which is so great for the heart and for like the burdens and anxiety of motherhood, is a great soothing ally for you in the herbal world. Thyme and sage, star anise, mugwort, rosemary, all really supportive for this time as we shift from the light half to the darker half of the year. Journaling and reflection, whether it's tarot readings, meditations, going to see a counselor, just doing breath work or walking. This is that time where you get to kind of get right in your head around things. This is the time of taking stock, like in the Jewish tradition, as they prepare for Rosh Hashanah. There's this time of reflecting and taking stock of my life and what's going on, what's present, and what needs to be released. I'm bringing this picture in here of a very Marie Kondo type of decluttering and organizing your home. I think as the light wanes and reduces, a perfect time for purging, go to Goodwill or the thrift store and give away the things that are no longer serving you so that they can be a gift to others. And taking time to organize your stuff. This is a part of that reflective practice of what do you have too much of? What do you have too little of? Especially as you prepare for a time in our seasonal like wheel of our year. As we head into the dark days, there's a lot of gift giving, whether it's at Thanksgiving or Christmas or um, Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating during the winter months. There's a lot of opportunities to give people what they need. But if you haven't done that process of organizing and decluttering, you don't know what you need. I've brought in justice and balance again, right? Feasting, eating all the berries. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest where blackberries were incredibly abundant around September. So I always think of blackberry pie. But this is the time to really forage and gather the last like real doozy of a harvest from the earth. I want to remind you, if you're going to go out and forage for herbs or berries and fruits and things like that, to practice the policy or the practice of the honorable harvest, where you ask for permission. You don't take more than you need. You leave some for the pollinators and the animals so that you are in right relationship and in a position of reciprocity with the land. Be sure to go outside. This, I think, is the one thing that you must do in order to be in alignment with the season. Go outside, smell the air, notice the light, pay attention to the colors. What is the energy? What animals do you see? If you live near water, go to the ocean. Notice the temperature of the water. Notice where the tide is, how many people are at the beach. Is the water choppy or is it calm? All of these moments where we tend to the quality of the earth itself. She so badly wants us to be paying attention to her and bringing ourselves into that relationship with the earth. And these seasonal holidays are a perfect time to get in alignment with the earth's expression of that time of year. This is a little jar of sauerkraut to remind us that this is the time of preserving, whether you're canning tomatoes or making jams or making sauerkraut, which is what every year I like to learn one new preservation technique. And last year it was sauerkraut. I loved it. I ate it all year long. So good. It's actually not that hard at all. It was cabbage, salt, and caraway seeds. And it did have to stay refrigerator because I don't have a cold enough cellar. So easy and so delicious. Finally, some animals of autumn. We've got crow, we've got owl. These birds are really brought in to remind us of the liminal spaces. Autumn is in that transition from light to dark. It is the realm of all animals that are either mature, that's why stag is here, and salmon returning to their hatcheries where they've spent a whole life out at sea, and then they return upstream to where they were born to lay eggs for the next generation. That culmination of the life cycle resonates with this time of year. So stag and salmon are here, but then crow and owl are here because they reside at that place between dark, between night and day, or crow between life and death. And they are messengers of that liminal space. Bringing images of those birds or reading stories about those animals, all of those are part of bringing ourselves into a synchronistic, harmonious relationship with the energy of the time. So a perfect tea for this time of year, especially as we deal with anybody who's dealing with any back to school energy, which can be chaotic. There's a great sense of like endings and beginnings at this time of year. And there's like a lot of drain on the system, not to mention a lot of us are entering back into, I say us because I have kiddos and I've lived the teacher life. You're going back into community with a lot of people. And so not only are you emotionally, psychologically drained and energetically drained, but then you're like also around all these germs. So take care of you with a nutritive tea. The intention behind this tea is to provide nutrients for the body to support and soothe the nerves. So there's a couple beautiful nervines in here. Lemon balm and holy basil are going to help with the nervous system. And then invoking protection, and not in the sense that you are in danger, but in the sense that you have boundaries and that you're protecting your energy and protecting yourself from germs. So nettle and peppermint really give off like a good, in terms of magical properties, they're very protective in this way. And then always with a beautiful tea ceremony is an opportunity to recenter, take a deep breath, especially with these aromatic herbs like lemon balm, holy basil, and peppermint. They smell so good. So as you breathe it in, allowing yourself space to ground and center. The directions for all of this are in the Mabon Workbook, which you can find on the Magical Homemaking website. But very briefly, I love to set an intention when making a tea. This is just an example of what you might say. Welcome, herbs. Please assist me in nourishing my body and mind. Whew, that was terrible. And help me create a space of ease and grace, unlike the phone call going off in the middle of your video. But we're going to just keep moving on because we don't have time. Moving on. So when you bring the herbs to your mixture, you're telling them, you're being like, hey, herbs, will you help me in this endeavor? This is my intention to be protective and nutritive, da, 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 da. And each one, if you wish to, as you put the herbs into your little tea basket or whatever, hey, nettle, will you come and bring your nutrition and your protection? Lemon balm, will you come and calm the nerves and invite love into my life? Holy basil, will you come, please, and help clear the mind and bring balance? Peppermint, thank you so much for your healing and restorative powers. Be sure to be mindful of your energy as you pour water. It's a liquid crystal. It's a perfect medium for your thoughts and energy. So whatever you are feeling and thinking at the time of pouring it and stirring it and drinking it, you're putting that energy into the water. So be mindful of how you are and your quality of your presence so that you're really infusing it and programming your water with your intention around ease and centering, health, protection. Let your tea steep for 7 minutes and then drink it with mindfulness. My little note here is drink it with a student in your life, and giving thanks for new beginnings. Discuss how to alchemize the challenges into stories of overcoming adversity. I find that always at the beginning of the school year, the kiddos are stressed. There's just a lot of newness, and they're like, every day are like little failures as well as little successes, and just using this opportunity to help weave stories of empowerment and joy and purpose. Okay. Now, the seasonal altar is probably one of my favorite activities to do, both personally, but especially if you have a family or people that you're living with, because it's a place where you can be in conversation around how the season is changing. So you're going to need a surface. You're going to need a candle, whether it's an actual candle or like a battery operated candle, depending on your environment and what feels safe. You're going to want a fabric, some kind of altar fabric or fabrics, gifts from nature. We'll talk about that in a second. And then seasonal objects, anything that reminds you or tells you the story of the season that you're in. So number one, pick a location in your home where you're going to see your seasonal altar regularly. You want to be engaging with it pretty often. Then before approaching anyone else about participating in this, I recommend that you personally drop in and get really centered and grounded and connected with the network of consciousness and magic all around you, and declare your intention to the universe of why you want to use this seasonal table and inviting kind of the magic. It's good to be in that space yourself before inviting other people to participate so that you are kind of energetically anchoring the table. And then with other people, if you're engaging them, be clear about the intention as you show them and introduce the seasonal table. For us, the seasonal table is really just a fun way of honoring what's going on in the season, a place to show off artwork and gifts from nature, and to be in conversation about the season. And then anchor into the season, have a conversation or a meditation or a coloring session where you talk about the colors and the smells and the lights and the traditions or the celebrations that happen during that season. Is that when you celebrate Thanksgiving? Do you have a regular Mabon bonfire? Think about all that stuff and talk about it with each other. So you're like calling in and raising energy around the season. Then that's when you can lay your foundation, which for me usually begins with a cloth. And it's just truly subtle magic to put down a piece of fabric on top of a surface. It changes it so clearly from just a humdrum shelf on a bookshelf or a countertop or a shelf by your window into a sacred space. So I really do recommend putting down a fabric, and it doesn't have to be a fancy fabric. I get a lot of mine from like the fabric stores, so little extra bits and bobs. And then start with, if you have, some of us have like little boxes or bins full of seasonal objects, and just invite every person to bring one thing that reminds them of the season. And it could be a leaf or a little figurine or a picture or even a song to be sung at the table. And together you lay the foundation. Then slowly over the season, go on walks, spend time outside, and ask the world, ask nature, your environment, your property, the parks where you go on walks, ask for gifts. And this is really about, again, engaging with the environment in reciprocity and asking for permission, and then making sure that the land knows that you would like to bring this gift back to your seasonal altar as a way of honoring the land and the season. Do this slowly, take multiple walks, get outside, and then engage the table. Talk about it with each other. If you can see it by the dinner table, that's the best for me because a lot of our conversations happen around there. You can even document it in your journal or take photographs of your table, how it changes over time. And then eventually it'll be time to begin again. The season will shift. And so oftentimes it doesn't necessarily correspond with the seasonal celebration. Sometimes, like this year in 2022, we're having a bit of a false autumn. I would say that the Mabon vibes are full in effect and we're still a couple weeks out. And I would start my altar now because it feels like the right time. This feels like things are changing now. So you don't have to abide by a Gregorian calendar. You have to abide by what feels good and right in you and in your family. And it is lovely to turn this into part of your celebration, though. It's a fun way to maybe start the day that way, reminding people like, hey, later on the day, we're going to have our Mabon celebration. We're going to start the day by doing our seasonal altar. Da, 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 da. Fun, right? Some nature reflections. This is something I think that's nice to do on your own privately, but it can be really sweet to do with kiddos or even a partner, or if you're sitting in, like I live with my parents in a multi-generational home. So it's a really fun thing to do around the table. We keep a nature journal to document the different things that are going on. So asking these questions around what is thriving, what is dying back, how are the plants changing, how is the temperature, has it rained lately, what's the quality of the air, has it been windy, What animals are around right now? Are they bringing any messages that you notice? And then what medicines are growing around you? And what do you want to learn more about what's growing around you? This is all part of turning to the earth as our first teacher. What can we learn just by being sacred observers of the seasons? And then personally in your own life, you want to take an audit of your journey. How are you doing? What is shifting and changing within you? Taking a time to nod to appreciate your successes and what you're harvesting. What seeds did you plant back in January when you set your intentions? And what is coming to fruition now? Is there anything out of balance? Do you need to make some adjustments? And then, you know, even though we are turning towards the dark days of the year, are you excited about that? What are you excited about as the days darken? I'm not going to lie. I love a good sweater weather and some cozy hot beverages and fires in the fireplace. And what are you grateful for? In the Mabon Workbook is this study guide so that you can keep track of all the different aspects to this season and, you know, what are the different themes and altar objects you might bring or symbols. And here, I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, this is my big grimoire, and this is what my page looks like. And it's kind of important to me that I not just ramble off all these different things. It's so important to me that you find what resonates with you. So I give little pieces and bits and bobs in there, but I'm a scholar at heart. And so I want to invite you to do the same investigations out there. I think you learn so much by the act of writing things down and documenting them, as opposed to just printing off someone's pre-made grimoire page. There's some value in that too. I've definitely appreciated that. But ultimately, it's my notes that are like picking out the things that deeply resonate with me that are the most significant. So I wanted to give you a space where you can do that. There's also a tarot spread because it's so lovely to consult the universe or your higher self or even your ancestors, these questions about themes that are coming up at Mabon. So the first three cards are like, what does balance even mean to you? We think we know what this means, by the way. And I had my whole world rocked one time when, gosh, I can't remember her name, but she said, I don't think balance is something that happens every day, where you have like 8 hours of this and 8 hours of that, or 4 hours of work and 4 hours of life. She talked about seasons and how, like, for example, when you're in motherhood and you have a newborn baby, things are out of whack. And there is no like everyday balance of like what amount of time you spend on your kid versus how much time you spend on you. But there may be the season of surrendering your personal agenda in order to meet the needs of your baby. And then a couple of years, months, whatever it is later, you get to take your big chunks of time for you and yourself. It doesn't have to be every day. And these first three cards can really help you understand what balance means for you. Then, number 4, where is there balance already in your life? Number 5, what is out of balance? Number 6, what helps bring balance? 7 is something the same. So like what creates number 6 is what creates imbalance, and number 7 is what supports balance. And then 8 is a little tip from the universe, you should focus on this. Finally, I think a really lovely meditation for this time of year are some coloring pages. There is a simple one in the Mabon Workbook, but if you were to, you can look up mandalas online. You can often find some free meditations there. If you are on Canva, there are some coloring pages in there. Yeah, it's not hard to find coloring pages. And there's something so lovely and sweet about, in our family, we like to turn on an audiobook or music, or someone reads aloud, and then the rest of us can do some coloring. It's a great way to just turn off the monkey brain for a while and just enjoy the present moment. My friends, I am so glad that you are even interested in learning about Mabon. This work of attending to the season and the changes in our environment is such sacred work, and it really brings us even closer to being in right relationship with the earth. So with that, I send you off. I hope you have a great celebration. Tell me how it goes.